And I say, look, we're not part of the investment community. We're not really talking about investing. We're talking about collecting real money so that we can help out when the investment community falls over. Hey guys, Raf here from the Endgame Investor. I'm away from my home base right now, so the background is a little bit different. I don't want it to freak anybody out. And I got David Morgan on the line, and we wanted to discuss what's happening in the SLV ETF because I've been seeing some strange stuff. I don't know exactly how to interpret it. David's been in this business a lot longer than I have. So David, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay, Ralphie. Thanks.
Good. So I'm in Miami right now. You're in Washington, so we're making a diagonal across the U.S. Um, so you said that the way I understand SLV, and tell me if I'm missing anything on this, that the SLV tries to follow the futures. I don't know which one's following, which one's leading. I guess you can make an argument that either one. But if there's less of a the way I understand it, if there's less of an interest in paper silver at the time, then in order to keep SLV in line with the futures, then authorized participants have to liquidate shares and take silver out of the ETF in order that silver follows the futures market one for one. And reverse, if there's more interest in the paper silver market than in the ETF silver market than in futures, then they have to put more silver in it so the shares have more of a supply, so it keeps in line with the futures. Is that how SLV is supposed to work?
Yeah, that's
Is that how it
basically it,
actually
Ralphie.
works?
Yeah, that's basically sure. That's a good summation. I would also just add that there's a lot of friction in the SLV. There are fees and all that, and they mount up over time. But if you just and a lot of people use it. I'll just digress for a minute. But there was a very large fund manager I knew from Singapore years ago, real big silver bug, but all he ever used was the SLVs. He almost apologized to me because I know you really on the physical side, but it's so much easier for me as a hedge fund manager to use, an ETF. And of course, that's true across the board.
Mm-hmm. So then, what I've been seeing lately is that the futures price, the futures price is heading higher. Or was it 23 to 25 or whatever it is? I always get these numbers wrong. I know it's somewhere in the 20s because I confuse the ETF with the futures and whatever. So anyway, the futures price has been going up, but the ETF, the amount of silver in the ETF has been going down. And I interpret that as lack of interest in the paper market, at least for retailers, because I imagine that retailers don't really buy futures that much. They buy more of the paper ETF if they want to speculate on the price. But the amount of silver in SLV has been falling since this latest rally started. So does that mean that there's less interest in paper silver and more interest in physical, or is that too much to read into it?
I think it's enough. I think you're right. I mean, it's incongruous to see this much of a rally in the silver market with all the algorithms that are out there and the participation that's available in the ETFs to see it not go, more buying pressure on the ETF side. It's not. And just to go backwards in time, I don't know how many of your viewers know about this. There was a gentleman named Scott Maynard who was the chief investment officer for Guggenheim. And he was at Davos, better known as the WEF these days. I think it was about 3 years ago. And he was asked by the Bloomberg finance guys on an interview at Davos, what's your go-to investment for, I think it was 2020. And he said silver. And these guys almost fell out of their chair. They couldn't believe it. And the guy composed himself and said, well, silver, why not gold? He says, well, gold's pretty near its all-time high, but silver's off 60%. Well, that year, Rafi, was the largest year of purchases in the ETF ever. 320 million ounces were purchased in the ETF that year. And the retail side was like 200. So it was like half of the world's silver supply on an annual basis was taken out that year. Since then, we just haven't, and that was sold back, and the ETFs depleted what you say their holdings, and now we're at a place where it just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, with silver at the position it's at, I know the COT, I know we're due for a pullback. I just did an update on that, but as far as longer term is concerned, the market just keeps getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And why isn't there any ETF participation at this level is baffling to me. I just don't have an answer for it. I mean, I don't want to put on the tinfoil hat I've worn most of my life because, is the word out that, don't you dare buy any silver. The market's already too tight. I don't know. I don't have a good explanation for it.
It's a silver hat, not a tinfoil hat. We don't want the tin people
Okay,
taking
thank you.
taking the credit.
Thank you.
Um, so the other question I wanted to ask is that you were saying something um, that you had a slightly different view as to what I was saying in one of my reports. I forgot what it was that I was saying exactly, but you seem to want to tell me something. What?
Yeah, it wasn't anything to be proven. My idea, and I can't, is that the metal coming out of the ETFs, where you think there'd be metal going in, you think there'd be more buying pressure, is to help the supply chain. I really know, not to the ounce, that the supply chain is tighter than ever. I mean, you've reported on it almost every week. The registered category is down to roughly 30 million ounces. It started at 150, I think, when we started Silver Squeeze. I mean, that is a big offtake. And the thing that maybe your viewers or my viewers probably know, but needs to be reiterated, is that the COMEX is really the last place you take delivery. It's sort of like the bank of last resort. Most of these big users, through the Silver Users Association and just experience in the market, take it directly from a refiner or sometimes even directly from a mine. And so to get it, shelved on the COMEX in a warehouse somewhere and then taken off and actually delivered, that's something that really is unusual. And the other part of it is, so I've watched the market for so long, is once we got down to the 30 million range or thereabouts in the past, it's happened 2 times to my knowledge in the last 20 years. Both times it built right back up to 40, 50, 60 rather quickly within a couple of months. And it didn't stay in the 30 range for, I'm going to have to guess, but probably a month or two at the most. This time, we're staying down at that level, and the ETFs are, I wouldn't say being drained, but they're removing metal. I think we're at an inflection point here pretty soon on the physical side. And I've said for years, the only way we're really going to get true price discovery is when the real physical metal trumps the paper markets. One thing that isn't really articulated very much is that there is enough physical to meet the demand as it stands on the paper side, meaning, that 1% that's taken off the futures exchange is delivered. What isn't very well known is that they can settle in paper. And if you're a small fry, not a big entity, you get and I've had this reported to me several times, you just get a nice letter from the exchange saying, we know you want to stand for delivery, but the rules say we can send you a check. Here's your check. So these are people, and the only evidence I have off is inconsequential, but the idea is important. And that is, I had 3 contracts and I have to take a check. And those are the type of emails I've received with a photograph of that statement from their broker. Does that happen all the time, and how impactful is it? I don't know. It might be a small case, but it proves the point that they have the discretion to allocate the physical as they see fit, because that's in their rule book.
So just in a basic sense, where is all the silver that goes into the COMEX coming from? Who buys it? And what's it? You say that people usually buy it directly from a mine. So how does it get there? Does
Not,
COMEX
not,
do
no, that's
business,
a
or
misstatement.
is it private
Sorry to interrupt.
holders?
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. No, buying from the mine is a rare thing. It happens with Avino mines, but most of them get it from the refiners. And where does it come from? It comes from the bullion banks, because there's no buyer for silver, let's say industries, 50%, as and the other, let's say 50% that's made into commercial bars. The bullion banks buy it at spot or near there, and they shelve it and put it in wherever they're going to, the LBMA, the COMEX, or what have you. So that's who buys it. They're the buyer of last resort. And if there's what I'll call surplus, which there really isn't, but we call it that, it gets shelved. That's how it happens.
I started out in gold, meaning that was my focus, but then whatever happened, I don't know how I get into this, but like I ended up focusing more on silver. And now the more that I think about it, I think everything's really based on that, and gold is secondary. Not that gold isn't important, it definitely is. But we talk about 1971 a lot, or you could say 1973 when the final peg at 42.22 was scrapped. But a lot of we often forget 1873 because no one was alive at that point. Or was it 1874? 18 what was 18 was 1871 or 1873?
Crime was 73, I think. I just in my
1873.
memory.
Yeah, and I remember reading about that in high school. I was reading the Cross of Gold speech by William Jennings Bryan in some philosophy class. I had no idea what he was talking about. And William Jennings Bryan doesn't really make any sense. He's just an emotional speaker. Like he doesn't really make any points. So then, but I thought about it. In 1873, you had all these people with physical silver in their hands, and then the banks have the gold, and then all of a sudden the monetization of the dollar moves from silver to gold. So we talk about wealth transfers from the middle class to the rich. Like that's what inflation is. But that's exactly what moving the dollar standard from silver to gold accomplished, because that would lower the demand for silver and increase the demand for gold. So the bank's money goes up and the people's money go down. So this really is a crime. What we've been fighting has predated both of our births by a long time. And really, the solution is the ultimate solution is not really to go back to gold. That would help a lot, but it's really to go back to silver standard. I don't see that happening anytime soon. And the problem is like silver isn't very convenient, and it's much better to have a gold substitute than silver. But my point about silver is that there's going to be a time when the gold substitutes that we have, the dollar and all the rest that's based on it, are not going to work for a short period of time. And when that happens, there's going to be no choice but to go back to silver, because silver is the ultimate gold substitute. Right? That's the point. And once that crystallized in my head, that was when I decided like I'm a silver guy, not really a gold guy, even though I own both. Um, like I guess it's not a question. I mean, what do you think about that thought process?
That you're right. I mean, the whole U.S. Monetary system in the beginning is built on silver, not on gold. The other comment is that the Wizard of Oz is a metaphor for the Eastern bankers putting us on the gold standard. There's a movie out that you can get for free on YouTube called The Secrets of Oz by Bill
Oh, is that
Still.
Bill
I've met
Still?
Bill. Yeah,
Bill
Bill Still.
Still?
I met Bill when the governor of Utah signed into law that anyone in Utah could use gold and silver in any transaction as long as both parties agreed. So I think the modern technology is going to help us. And that means because if you could put silver on your phone and you can debit out your silver holdings for, a phone card or groceries or whatever. And we really put silver at its highest use because it's easily proven that the highest use of silver is money, not a commodity, and not an industrial use. And
Mhm.
once we, the people, are able to access it and use it easily, which we can with a phone or debit out of a depository, I think we'll get the remonetization of silver at the grassroots level. Obviously, I did a couple lectures years ago. What if silver was treated like gold? And my whole premise was, what if silver was a monetary asset to the banking system? Of course, it's not. It hasn't been since 1873. But if it were, what would that look like? And of course, what it looked like is silver would probably be on par with the gold, because the reserve requirements the banks would hold on a 16-to-1 ratio would be well beyond what the above ground supply is right now.
Here's another interesting point that I came across with a conversation on Twitter. Right, silver is very volatile, and its price is constantly changing from very undervalued to very overvalued. And there are points when, at the peak of monetary crisis, like when are we going to know when this peak of monetary crisis is? Well, we have examples of that in the past century, in 1919, when I think it was that a silver dollar was worth more than a gold dollar. Not that silver was worth more than gold, but a silver coin of denominated in a dollar was worth more than a gold dollar coin. That was 1919, post World War One. The other time was 1968, and then after that was 1980. At all these points, silver goes very briefly to a 15-to-1 monetary ratio, which is historically, where it's been. So I mean, I'm projecting that at that point of peak monetary panic, we're going to see a 15-to-1 ratio in silver. I don't think it's going to last that long, but I think that will be the time when the silver hoarders are going to be called on. That's going to be the market signal for us to be called on to supply the market with silver as much as we can. So we got to be ready and willing to spend it when that's what the economy needs. Um, do you think we're going to end up eventually at a 15-to-1 ratio like we did in 1919 and 1980, or is that wishful thinking? Is it possible? Is it likely?
I think it's likely. One of the first articles I ever wrote for the internet, it's probably still floating out there in cyberspace somewhere, called Engineering the Price of Gold. And I talk about how to easily determine the paper price of gold in the United States. And then I said, well, what about silver? You're going to ask me. And I said, well, that's much more difficult because it's been demonetized. But I think in the exponential move that we're going to see, 16-to-1 is likely, and even perhaps a 10-to-1 ratio momentarily would probably take place. There's one thing I want to interject in here, Rafi, and
Hmm.
I've thought about this before our call. Everyone talks about silver hitting $50 an ounce in 1980, which it did, but that was a one-day event. I think what's more pertinent to a more logical thinker and putting it in the context of reality is this. Silver's all-time high in January 1979 was $6 an ounce. It hit
Hmm.
50 about a year later. But the entire year's average price in 1980 was $20 an ounce. That was the
Hmm.
average for the year. So now we've got a basis of how is it used for monetary purposes and or industrial purposes, jewelry and silverware. So that's 3 times the previous high of 6. And I think that's something to, just to voice that I think people can think about, because it's not at 50, it's at 25. And I mean, it's so undervalued. We both know that. Anyone in our community knows that. But the point being is, if we get to the level we're talking about, where the ratio goes to 10-to-1 or 16-to-1, it may resettle down at perhaps another, threefold above the previous year's high, or something along those lines. I hope you're following my train of thought
Yeah.
here. But that's a better basis for looking at the value of silver. So what did silver do between 1979 and 1980? Well, it spiked. The hunts were taken to Congress, blah, blah, blah. But that's sort of a sideshow, because what silver really did was it was revalued at triple the price it'd been at for most of its life.
Right. Right. So the that's the point I was going to make in the previous question, but now you dredged it up again. That somebody quoted a Bible verse to me in Twitter. They try to get my attention because they know I'm a biblical guy. So it was something in the Christian Bible about somebody found a silver coin in some widow found a silver coin in her house, and then she threw a block party or something. I don't know the story. But so then I quoted, it was there to show you that the Bible values silver very, very highly. So I came back at him, not that I'm a silver bear, but I quoted a passage from Kings where it says that in the time of Solomon he had so much gold and everyone was so rich that silver wasn't even worth anything. Like if it was in your pocket, you dropped it, you wouldn't pick it up. So even back then, silver was worth either nothing or worth an entire block party if you found one coin. It depends on the condition of the society. If it's a very rich society, you don't need silver. If it's a very poor society, it's the most valuable thing in the world. It's the same thing now. So if the meaning, how does everyone become poor? Well, if the dollar suddenly becomes worthless and that's what people have and they have no other money, then yes, silver's going to be worth a lot. If everyone's rich, like in let's say the 1930s, not 1930s, 1940s and 50s and 60s, early 60s, then silver's not going to be worth much. So so the Bible does show that it's as volatile back then as it is now, and that's something
Yeah.
that we have to accept. And hopefully we'll be at a time when it becomes extremely valuable again, and we can help out. It's about helping out. It's not really about being rich, but we know this is the commodity that's going to help out most because there really is no other retail money. Gold is not a retail money. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just reemphasize that. I'm in the, I mean, I know you through the internet. I've never met you personally. Welcome to Miami. I think you're in Florida now.
Yeah.
But I'm in the same mindset. I've been called a humanitarian. I wouldn't put that label on myself, but yeah, we are the ones that have the foresight to see what's coming And I think it's personally, I won't speak for you, it's my duty to help out as we rebuild. We may become the new banks. Maybe we will be, silver-backed digital currency or silver-backed whatever. Because I'm just reiterating basically what you said, but emphasizing it. I think it's important to have the right perspective on, let's say, a windfall. That really, what are you going to do with it? I mean, most sane people, there's a point where there's enough, and the people that never can get enough, uh, in my view, are not all that stable. Because if you can never get enough money, then how can you ever be satisfied with anything? Once you have enough or more than enough, then it's behooves me. I won't speak for you to help others with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what I see different about the silver community specifically, maybe the gold community also. I mean, we share that, but sometimes people ask me, well, gold's been down for so long, silver been down for so long, and we're the laughing stock of the investment community. And I say, look, we're not part of the investment community.
Sure.
We're not really talking about investing. We're talking about collecting real money so that we can help out when the investment community falls over. Like this is
Well
not
said.
like okay. So the return is like what we're talking about returns. I'm not into annualized returns and balancing a portfolio. Not that I don't agree with balancing a portfolio. It's just not that's not my business. My business is to explain money to people who sense that there's something seriously wrong with the system and don't know what to do about it. And what I tell them is that we have a sick society, and in almost every facet of it is diseased. Um, and there are still pockets of good, I'm seeing that in the U. I'm seeing a lot of pockets of good in the U.S. I saw the movie The Sound of Freedom last night with my wife. It's the first movie that I've been to in like 5 years, and afterwards there were these volunteers that had a post movie a message and told us to stay in the theater for James Caviezel's message after the movie, and passing out information on how to help how to help stop the child sex trade. I mean, this is like a real grassroots movement where Hollywood was trying to fight it and not allow this movie to be released. But but the point is, I'm going on a tangent, but I'm seeing pockets of good, and if we are to stop this engine of insanity that is plaguing our society, the engine room of the entire ship is the money itself. So if we can instead, I made this point before, if instead of buying Twitter, and buying Twitter was nice by Elon Musk for $55 billion, if he had taken that same $55 billion and bought as much COMEX silver as he could, we might be in a different world today. I mean, that's what's funding all the craziness. So once silver reaches that 15-to-1 ratio, I think it'll be over for the engine of corruption. At least this round of it. We'll head into the next one, but it should be a better world after a big stressful reset on our terms.
I agree. Well said.
Yeah. All right. Where can my audience find you, and put links in the description. Any closing remarks before we close this up?
No, I appreciate to have a conversation with you. I'll just say publicly, I think you are worth every minute. I watch your Friday updates on Arcadia. I'm friendly with Chris. In fact, Chris saw me at the New Orleans conference and had proposed the idea of what he was doing. And of course, I encouraged him, and he's done a great job. TheMorganReport.com. Make sure I've got a paid service and a free service. Get on the free service. Twitter's where I post most of the, what I would say, Web 1.0. I used to just rifle through the news every morning at 5 a.m., post like 3 or 4 pertinent articles on my website. Those days are over. Now I just find something that I think is very important, and I post it on Twitter. It takes a lot less time, and it's at SilverGuru22. And I will give a plug. I started an Instagram channel. I don't know if it was a dumb idea or a smart idea. It's The Real Silver Guru on Instagram. I've got short clips up there. I'm trying to make it work, and trying to get more of the young people to understand what you've done so well, Rafi, and that is to explain money to them.
Yeah. Thank you for the compliment, and we'll put the links in the description below. Thanks, David. I'm sure we'll speak again. And good health and happiness, and have a good summer.
Thank you. Same to you.